I'm the computer man. I'm the Macintosh man with the virus scan. Moving your files all across the land. Some Photoshop filters in After Dark. Get your Microsoft Office, express your quark. Millions of colors with a VRAM chip. How about a system crash that'll make you flip? I'm the computer man. I'm saying Windows 95 is plug and pray. If it's fonts you want, you gotta go to Macway. Log right on as my personal guest. You'll have Macintosh software on your desk. Send me an email with your request. If it's hardware you want, baby, I'm the best. I'm the computer.
Good evening, K-Squid listeners. Good evening, Santa Cruz, Central Coast, Monterey, and beyond. My name is Luigi Opito, owner-operator of Pleasure Point Computers right by the beach here in beautiful Santa Cruz, California. And for the next hour, I'm your tour guide into a world of wonder, magic, information, and a bunch of frustration. I got stuff to talk about. We're really frustrated. That's right. I'm talking about the internet and the world of computing. I am your computer man. Welcome one of the most helpful, friendly tech counters you have ever visited. I'd love to welcome you to your local radio station, your local KSQD Santa Cruz, K-Squid, 89.5, 89.7, and 90.7 FM. Also KSQT Prunedale, and always online at ksqd.org. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to your Tuesday night. So stoked to be here with you tonight. We've got, again, things going on. Is Windows 10 going to a monthly subscription rate? What is up with that? What about the Tesla stock option directly from Elon Musk? Is it a scam? Is it real? What are we talking about? Also, do you remember those Amazon grocery stores where you would walk in and just grab stuff and walk out? Why'd they fail, and what was the secret behind them? We're going to be talking about that as well. All coming up here on the Computer Man Show, as well as a number of email questions and all sorts of current events that are happening today. Coming up on this show tonight. At any point, of course, if you say to yourself, wow, this guy's talking a little bit quick, how am I supposed to get all these steps down? I want to listen to that one thing. I missed it. It blew right past it. Now he's on to something else. How? Well, we can jump online at ksqd.org, our amazing, illustrious website, and there we have a listening tab with a 2-week audio archive. That's right. Anything from the last 2 weeks on the KSQD, you can jump on and listen to at your heart's content over and over again if you'd like. And with that show, you can jump on, listen, rewind, fast forward, whatever you need to do, and get those steps down for my show, or maybe catch one of the shows you slept through or had work with or something that might have happened that you might have missed. There's a ton of awesome stuff that KSQD has to offer, and you can listen to all of it online, ksqd.org. And of course, while you're at our amazing website, checking out all the things that amazing website does for you and also here at the radio station, hit that donate button. That's right. If you haven't done it this year, if you haven't done it recently, do it. Hit it. Let us ring through the bells here and make sure that we're coming up with stuff that we need to do so that we can still pay the bills and make sure that we still come in here for you, because we are a volunteer-based radio station. There's no other way that we get our funding except from you. That's right. But it also makes it so I can talk about all these companies and talk about all these things honestly in the way that I would like to, because we aren't beholden to anybody except for you. So that's who we have our loyalties to, and we want to keep it that way. So jump online at ksqd.org, hit that donate button, and feel good, man. It's good stuff. And while you're there, like I said, 2-week audio archive, pretty cool. If you'd like to reach out to me after the show, there's some places on there you can actually reach out into the world of KSQD. But if you want to email me directly, you can always email me, Luigi, Luigi, at ksqd.org. We're going to jump on here to all the good stuff. We have our phone number here at 831-900-5773. That's 831-900-KSQD. All right, let's get on this one, and let's also get our on-air at ksqd.org, which is our live email here in the shop. So if you want to talk to us here while we're rocking and rolling, you can jump on, hit us an email with on-air at ksqd.org, and we'll see it pop up right here. That's right. Pretty cool. All right, let's see what we've got going today. Oh, of course, actually, if you're curious, if you've stumbled across us here, what is this Computer Man Show? What are we going to be talking about today? Well, most likely what we'll be talking about on most shows is updates, new devices, testimonial scams, and of course, our call-ins. What's going on with your bench? What's going on with your stuff? What's going on with your frustrating technology that isn't working the way that it should? That's what we want to talk about. We're here every Tuesday night from 6 to 7 p.m., and we're on show, this is show number 260 right now. Pretty cool. And our phone number here, 831-900-5773. That's 831-900-KSQD, or again, on air at ksqd.org. Okay, let's talk about we always start off with scams, because scams suck, and they're one of the worst ways that people use a computer at this point, right? Because that's really frustrating. It's really frustrating to get on a machine or spend all this money and jump online and all of a sudden just be screwed, right? So one of the ones that just came across my bench was actually really well done, and you read the whole thing and it sounds real. It's actually a very nice letter that you get. It's from Tesla. from the automotive company, not the electrical engineer. And it says One Tesla Road, Austin, Texas at the top. It has like their little logo. It's got it's very nice. It's got this nice watermark behind it. And it says, an urgent update importing information regarding your Tesla stock investment. And it says, I hope it finds you well. I'm writing to regard your recent investment with us in Tesla stock. And I want to extend my gratitude for entrusting us with your financial endeavors. The wording on this is very, very good. They immediately start with, we say an investment strategy involves backdating your investment under Tesla stock, unique opportunity to offer significant potential returns. To gain full access to the benefits, you need to pay the balance fee. And you're like, oh gosh, I didn't pay the balance fee or something. I want to emphasize the advantage of paying the added fee. Once the full fees are paid, you immediately gain access to your principal investment along with blah, 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 blah. Within 72 hours. There's another paragraph. Furthermore, I understand the circumstances vary. For any reason you're unable to meet the additional fees, rest assured your investment is still secure. We will return your investment capital along with the due interest. It might take a little bit longer, up to 2 months or less if you don't pay the fee right now. You're like, okay, so like they figure you're going to forget about it, or hey, it's 2 months, whatever. In conclusion, I want to reiterate the satisfaction and peace of mind you're paramount to us. Whether you choose to proceed or paying the additional fees, opt in for additional route, please be assured that we are committed to ensuring the safety and success of your investment. So they kind of give you like this feeling like, hey, the fee's important and you get your stuff, but hey, if you don't do it, hey, there's other rounds or there's other way to do it. Instead of it being like this diehard, like, whoa, this is what's happening. You better get on it, and this is what's going on, and you better pay it, or whatever they're saying, right? So, and then it goes everything, the letterhead, the wording, the font, everything looks great. Someone just spent a lot of time in this. And then you get down to the bottom, warm regards, says Matthew C. Tim, I don't know who that is, legal head, I didn't look up if that person's existed or not. Elon Musk, private Tesla stock share committee. Musk in his name is not capitalized, which I thought was interesting. That's like the first thing I saw in the entire thing that looked bad. And then comes the email address. If I was at Tesla, I would be like Luigi or Luigi Opido at Tesla.com or something, right? That I would figure that would be a normal email address, right? So this one, all this, you read through all this stuff, you think, oh my gosh, okay, blah, 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 okay. I guess at this point, maybe if you've received this letter, you've already given the scammer some money. I'm not really sure, but possibly. But at the very end, the email address that you're supposed to write Matthew back at the Tesla company from One Tesla Road in Austin, Texas. Let's see if this shows off any alarm bells or anything to you. The email address is timcm, because it's Matthew C. Tim, so timcm at inbox.ru. I'm going to read that again. timcm at inbox.ru. Do you know what .ru is when you put it at the end of any website? Let's just go through it real quick. We have .coms, right? We have .orgs, we have .govs, we got like .infos, we got a couple different websites like that are out there, right? And then they start getting to the country codes. If you might have seen something like .ca.us or something, or .ca or .nz or .cu or something like that. And those are like that could be Canada or New Zealand or other places. I think that last one was maybe like Chechnya or something like that. I'm not sure. But RU, the letters RU, that's Russia. That's Russia. So this company emailing all this good stuff, all this beautiful letter and everything like that, and then they just throw this email address down at the bottom, inbox.ru. So obviously fake, obviously a scam. You would not be sending any inbox anything, doing anything with money and stuff with Tesla, sending stuff and emails out to Russia. It just doesn't make any sense. But the email, it's beautiful. And again, that's one of those things where if you think something's good, just keep reading. Keep reading, get to the end, and this looked great. I was like, why is this? Why is there a fee? I mean, it feels scammy to me because I'm always watching for this type of stuff. But I'm like, it just felt good all the way to the last end. Very last line where it went to Russia. I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, that makes it obvious. But you never know. So scams are really tricky, and they're constantly changing. They're constantly morphing. There's new ones coming out right now, literally right now as we're on air. And we're going to try to see if we can find those and get them to you to make sure that you know about them. So you just have that extra thing in your pocket. Just hearing about it is enough to go, I heard something about that one time when someone else comes at you with something. Just go, hey, I think someone told me about that sometime. Or you just get that little bit of, you get that question, right? And if you can just question these things that come in, you can then at that point feel more solid about your decisions, and also if this stuff is fake. So yeah, last week we talked about the AT&T data breach. No real new news on that side, besides just it's been kind of hush hush, even though all of basically every account that AT&T's ever had was breached. Pretty awesome. They really haven't taken any actions besides sending out some emails, and then they also have reset some passcodes. So, okay. I mean, that's fine, and it works, I guess, but that's not really something that is... it's just one of those things that, like, you entrust a company with something, but also at the same time, every time you give out your information, you're also saying, okay, I'm pretty sure, or I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that this company might be one of those that gets hacked in the future. It doesn't know. You don't know. Who knows? In order to use the services, you have to give them your information. In order to function in today's world, you have to hand over certain things. And if you want a phone with AT&T, if you want a landline with AT&T, if you want to do anything with AT&T, you've got to give them some information, just like any of these other companies. So who's next, right? Or is it AT&T again, or whatever? So it's, your data's out there, and unfortunately, it's just the truth. So how do you mitigate that? How do you make sure things are flowing the right way that they should? You watch. You separate your passwords a little bit. Maybe have like 3 or 4 different passwords that you use. If you can, you change your passwords semi-frequently for some of the things that you use. Or if you have one global username and password that's on Facebook and everything else, that you're pretty diligent about watching those things and have two-factor authentication turned on to everything. Anytime it offers you two-factor authentication. Very important. It's just, you can only do so much. And there are a number of companies on my phone that I have given data to. And you can always jump onto haveibeenpwned, PWNED.com, and you can see where which websites have been breached. Like, one of the biggest ones I had was from Cafe Press. Do you remember that website? I think they're still around, but they used to do t-shirts and stuff like that. I think I either designed a t-shirt or two, or I'd purchased a couple t-shirts from them, and my data that I had put into there and my username and password had been leaked. So I used some silly password with them that I didn't use that on everything else, and I didn't really care. So it's out there. It's done. Have I been pwned? PWNED.com. Have I been pwned? It's a website run by a white hat hacker, which is an ethical hacker, that then watches the blacklists and will find your email address and give you a searchable realm to see if your email address falls into one of those breaches. And again, if you see your email address pop up, almost everybody's is in there. Like, you're going to get a red screen almost definitely if you put your email address in. But as you read, when you see that, don't let the red screen freak you out. You're going to see underneath it says, 0 pastes. If it's 0 pastes, that means that no one copied out of that list and put it into something else nefarious, and you should be okay. If you do see a paste, any email or any password that's tied in with that email address, you want to change. I know it's a pain, but that's what you're going to want to do. Okay, let's move on from that. Let's see. We talked about this phone thing. Oh yeah. So this big thing now, I guess, is people stealing phones and then selling them, and people get all of a sudden a message from China, or they get a message from some market someplace overseas where they're being taken apart, or they've been sold in the black market. This one said, we talked about this a little bit last week, but I've heard about this more and more and more. My sister's phone was stolen in Florida, and now the Chinese buyer in Hong Kong is dramatically trying to get her to unlink her iCloud account. Sucks to be him. So yeah, and that's the common script. They buy the phone that's been jailbroken, and your stuff is still tied to it. The only way for you to remove it is to remove it at Apple's level, which means going on to Find My iPhone, going on to one of those processes, and then actually removing your phone from your iCloud, removing it from the Find My stuff, which then releases it for whoever's on the other side. Screw that. No way. Right? Like, they bought something obviously from somebody who is a scammer. And maybe, yes, you don't want to give away your phone and stuff, so let you keep it on your Find My iPhone. Of course, they're going to start with some stuff. They're going to start with that. They're going to ask you, please, 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 and then they're going to, the next person is going to send death threats, or the next text message is going to come to death threats. I know where you live, all this blah, 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 all this crazy stuff. Don't do the thing you're asking. So keep it in Find My, and keep it in the Find My app. That's the first thing. Keep it in lost mode forever, because that wipes out the screen and just puts a notice across the front of it that you can't get rid of, and it makes it useless. And then at that point, they'll just take it apart and strip it for parts. So if you have a phone that's had this happen, you can watch where it is in Find My iPhone, or Find My. The program's called Find My. It used to be called Find My iPhone, but now you can find your AirTags, or find your AirPods, or find your iPad, or find your iPhone, so they call it Find My. that's the name of the app now. So using that, you can find the phone, see where the phone is, and then you can enable lost mode, which gives you basically just turns the phone into a giant white screen with a message on it that you decide, hey, I want a reward for this, or or hey, there's a reward for this phone if you find it, or call this number, all that stuff. So yeah, eventually they're just going to strip it for parts. But at this point, you don't get to have them use it, and then also the annoying text messages from them stop because they can't use the phone because it's in lost mode. So it's just one of those things you could do. If you get that out there, if somebody gets it from you, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating when your stuff gets stolen, and then you get messages from the person who now has your stolen device saying, hey, let go, hey, let go, hey, let go. And you're like, no, I will not. And that's okay. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Yes, let's get to these articles. I have a ton of email questions. We're going to do that in the second half. I want to talk about some of these things that we talked about at the very, very beginning of the show. So first, let's talk some Microsoft stuff. We very rarely talk smack about Microsoft. Microsoft still sucks as much as Apple does. They all kind of suck at this point because they're all getting kind of greedy. Everyone has computers already, and they're like, hey, why don't you buy a new computer? So let's talk about operating systems. Windows 10. Windows 10 is slated to be viable and still get security updates through the end of October of 2025. So that is rapidly approaching. That is a year from this October, which means that if you don't have Windows 11, theoretically, you're not going to be getting the security updates from Windows 10. Now, Windows 10 is great. Windows 10 works really well. It's a fast install. It gets its updates. It works. It works well. Windows 11 I personally don't really care for it. It's a little froofy. It reminds me of like Windows XP when they had like the green bubble set, with Windows XP Home opposed to Windows XP Professional, which was just gray and blocky. That might just be my personal preference, but Windows 11 just bugs me. I don't like the way that they have bubble menus and everything. I don't like the way that Explorer works. I don't like how I have to, when I right click on the screen, I have to go to extra stuff. And yes, there are ways to turn those things off, but I don't have to go in and configure my operating system to look the way I want it to. I want it just to kind of function and not be froofy, bubbly, stupid. And Windows 11 is fine. It has TPM control, which is a trusted platform module thing, which has some encryption, end-to-end stuff, a little bit extra things that Windows 10 doesn't. Do I use that? No. Do a lot of you use that? Not really. So it's got some features that you have, but do you use them? Well, maybe we will in the future. Okay, so back to what we're talking about. So Windows 10 and Microsoft have now figured out a way to turn Windows 10 into partly a subscription model. What am I talking about? Well, support's going to end on October 14th, 2025. That's like kind of the official date. But if you want to keep using Windows 10, you can enroll your PC into a paid Extended Security Update Program, ESU. And it's a subscription. So I guess they had this with Windows 7, and I never heard about it. I never heard anything about it. And it was basically you had Windows 7, your Windows 7 expired, and then you could pay Microsoft. Basically, it was $50 for the first year, doubled to $100 in the second, and then quadrupled to $200 in the third, trying to get you to make sure you pay. And say like you're in your third year and you decide to go legit, you would then have to pay the $200 and the $100 and the $50. So you're going to be paying $350 total to get up to date. It's all retroactive. So they make it so like, do you want to pay now? Do you want to pay later? And you're like, I don't want to pay at all. I don't want to do this at all. What are you guys talking about? And that was the cheap version. That was Windows 7. Then on Windows 8, they didn't do it at all. I mean, I didn't even hear about the Windows 7 thing, and I'm reading about it in this article going, wait, what? I don't remember that at all. But okay, so let's say that they did, whatever. Now Windows 8, everyone hated Windows 8, so they didn't even offer a program for Windows 8. Then Windows 10 comes out, and I remember when Windows 10 came out, and they were saying, okay, yeah, October 14th, 2025. You're like, fine, whatever. And then Windows 11 came out like a year later, and he goes, what are you guys doing? And it still had like 4 years of Windows 10, 5 years of Windows 10, and it still sucked. And you're like, you guys are making a new operating system while Windows 10 is still having problems. And then Windows 10 finally got good, like in 21H2, I think is the operating system, in the second half of 2021. And then it was fine. And so now here we are in 2024. We've had a good operating system for about 3 years, and it's on its way out again. So what do you want to do? If you want to keep Windows 10, theoretically, and keep all the security stuff and everything, you're going to have to pay. How much is that going to cost? Well, the first option is going to be available for $61 per device for the first year. Okay, $61, and that's after October. So they're going to start selling this in October of this year. So you are preemptively ready for next year or something. I'm not looking forward to this at all. But then the second year is going to be $122. So they're doing their same thing where they double it the next year. And then the year after that, it's going to be $244. And again, if you do it in the third year, you have to pay the $244, the $122, and the $61 altogether. It's retroactive. You have to pay that stuff. And of course, so they're saying it's going to get inordinately expensive to continue receiving extended security updates, and they just want you to move to Windows 11. So then they hope that the price pushes you into getting Windows 11. And not the quality of the operating system, not the way that it works, not the way that it's going to make my computer better, nothing like that, just to make you pinch your pocketbook even more so you're forced into a new machine. Yeah, that's a big middle finger to you, Microsoft. Huge. I understand they have to make money or something, but they're a $4 trillion company. They can, pass that to the consumer a little bit and make, that pisses me off. It's very irritating. So they say that Windows 10 devices that subscribe to the Windows 365 program to access Windows 11 PCs will automatically receive extended security updates without any additional cost for the first year. So if you decide, hey, I'm going to go into Windows, I guess you have Windows 10 using Windows, using Microsoft 365 or Windows 365 to access Windows 11 PCs. So if you have I guess it's remote access or something they're talking about, and you still have to pay something, you're like, screw that, just get RustDesk. RustDesk is a free program that allows you to do anything that TeamViewer or AnyDesk does. It's 100% free, and you throw it on another computer, set up remote management, boom, you're done. This is insane. It's disgusting. It's making me angry because I see the conversations I'm going to have with customers and with my clients. I'm going to see the conversations I have with people, and they come and they go, what do you mean you have to pay for a monthly or a yearly thing for Microsoft? I'm like, you're not paying me. You're paying those greedy dudes up in Seattle, man. This is awful. This is awful. They say also that if an organization, this is the whole thing, if they jump into the ESU program the second year, it will stop to pay for the first year because it's cumulative. And they're also, like I said, they're selling it from October 2024, 1 year before Windows 10 official end of support date. So I don't know if this is something that just they're throwing out and it's kind of going to happen again, whoa, geez, they say it happened in Windows 7. You're like, but I didn't hear about it in Windows 7. I don't remember. I have updated hundreds of Windows 7 machines. I have not seen anything that said, hey, do you want to extend your security descriptors for an extra 60, 47, what was it? 20, 80, what was it? $50? No, I haven't seen any of that. So what's up with that? Really weird. That it just makes me angry, man, because it's another thing that people have to pay for when a lot of times they're like, dude, I don't have enough money to buy Office. I don't have enough money to type my paper in school. All I want to do is just use my computer. Why am I having to pay all these subscription stuff? Why are all these companies getting so greedy that everything needs to be subscription based? It is mind-numbingly irritating. So moving along from that, let's get into more of a positive side of Microsoft. This is very interesting, and also putting all their eggs in one basket, which is always fun to watch from the outside. So Microsoft is saying that Windows on an ARM processor, let me see, actually, to be honest, I don't remember exactly what ARM stands for. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to use the old Google because even the computer man sometimes doesn't know what that means. Let's see. So ARM is, it's each of the upper two limbs of the human body. Thank you. No. Let's see. Processor. Let's try that. So with these, basically Microsoft is fighting against Apple right now. Apple has their own architecture. They have the M1, M2, M3 chips, which is their system on a chip. It's their in-house design chip, and it is awesome. It's really good. The M1 chips right now, if you're looking at a new Mac and you're looking at getting a Mac, right now you can get a used or a lightly refurbished M1 for like $500, $600 or something like that. It's awesome. And those M1 machines are holding on super strong. There's no way to know what Mac is going to do with phasing them out, because they haven't done any of that yet. They're already on the M3s, and I guess, I don't know, I haven't heard anything about an M4 yet. But okay, so an ARM processor is a family of central processing units based on a reduced instruction set, computer RISC architecture. So I remember the ARM processors. If you think of it, you use ARM processors all the time. If you have a newer car, the car uses ARM processors. If you've ever played a PlayStation is an ARM processor. The ASIC chip that's actually built in with an RISC architecture goes inside the little tiny thing that tells where your yaw, pitch, and roll is in your car. When I used to do, it's basically a yaw, pitch, roll sensor that's solid state. and it has these little drive tines that twist, and the twisting twists the quartz in a certain way. They amplify that, and you can get a degree based on which way this thing is facing. And with that, it uses its own little processor, a little ASIC or an ARM processor. So Microsoft is like looking over at Windows going, oh boy, we need to get on this because to give you an example, I had an M1 processor in my shop, and this person had gone to they'd gone overseas, and the person that they were overseas with took a whole bunch of photos, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos a day, and they were gone for 2 weeks. So, and they were with like some really nice, digital camera that we have now, which are like 32 megapixels, right? There's huge amounts of data. So each photo is like 24 megs, and there's 700 a day. So we're talking about gigs and gigs of photos, like maybe like 8-9 gigs worth of photos. So they zipped these photos and put them on zip drive. They put them on not my drive. What am I thinking? Dropbox. I could see the logo in my brain. So they put them on Dropbox. I said, okay, go ahead and download them. So we downloaded this 9 gig file, and she said, I don't know what to do with this. So I've got to unzip this file. If you've ever downloaded something and had to unzip it, it takes some time. It's a processor process. It has to basically, it's like everything's compressed. A zip file makes you can put a bunch of files into one file, make it smaller, shrink it down, and compress it, and it's a smaller amount of data to be sent or a smaller amount of data to manage or to look at or whatever. And then with that, then you'd use an unzipping program, unzip the files, whoop, all the files come out, same size that they were when they went in, and you are now uncompressed. So this gigantic zip file with hundreds and thousands of photos, if you were to unzip that on a process, like on my latest laptop, which is I think now 2 or 3 years old maybe, if I were to take that zip file, unzip it on my computer at fastest speed with it plugged in, nothing else running, just unzipping it, that 10 gig zip file would probably unzip in 10, 12 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than that, possibly, give or take. Let's say 10 minutes, okay? I was on this M1 processor. It's not the M2. It's not the M3. It's the entry-level M1, not the M1 Pro, not the M1 Ultra, just the M1 processor on a standard MacBook Air. With that MacBook Air, I unzipped that 10 gig zip file. It was unzipped in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. What is that? 20 times the speed it was on a PC, or would be on a PC? Incredible. Like, absolutely incredible. The amount of speed that these new processors that the Macs have are just awesome. And then you load them up with stuff, and they run cool. And then, of course, if you've got a MacBook Pro, you have the fan in there, so it'll actually allow the processor to ramp up a little bit higher, get a little bit hotter, and you can do a little bit more than the M1 does. So I think it's the M1 Pro in that, or the MacBook Pro has the M1, but the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air, basically the difference is a fan. Yeah. So Microsoft is going, oh, we need to do something about this. And I don't know what Intel is doing, or AMD even, because they're going, we've been making these Intel processors forever, and we lost a big market share when Apple went away from us. Now is the Windows computer companies going away too? So because Windows is now trying to move to ARM. They're trying to move to ARM processors to say, hey, we can kick butt better than Apple can. So you're like, okay. So Qualcomm, who makes a lot of, they actually were, I think they were owned by Motorola, or they were first from Motorola or something like that. They are making a new updated Snapdragon X Elite processor. And that's the one that Windows is putting all their money into. They are betting huge on Qualcomm, betting huge that this new Snapdragon X Elite processor is going to be awesome. And there's so much that they're shipping it in laptops later this year. They're doing it in a few laptops. They're mostly putting it into the Surface Pros. Microsoft has a Surface Pro tablet. It looks like an iPad, but it's a full functioning computer. There's nothing in there you can do. If you have a Surface Pro from work, awesome. That's great. That would be the way that I would want to own a Surface Pro, because if anything happens to it, you're done. There's no replaceable parts in it. You can't fix the screens, can't replace the battery, can't do anything. You can't do anything. They're sealed devices, but when they work, they're really nice. They're small, they're thin, they're quiet, they don't get too hot, and they work pretty good. So if you can then put an awesome processor into one of these things, and all of a sudden now you have a computer that's blowing the doors off of anything else that's around, Microsoft's going to be very happy. But they're going to be planning, I guess, a number of demos. They're going to show coming up pretty soon. They're going to show how the processors are faster than the M3 MacBook Airs on CPU tests. Now, I don't know if that's the MacBook Pros as well, or if they're just right there with it. But an M3 MacBook Air CPU task supposedly is going to be better. Also with AI acceleration and app emulation. So that means if you're running something that shouldn't be there, it runs it on like a little sandbox area or something, or maybe even an app that wasn't designed for Microsoft. It shows how well it runs still. So Microsoft claims in internal documents that these new Windows AI PCs will, quote, have faster app emulation than Rosetta 2, which is the app emulation that Mac uses. And that application compatibility layer that Apple uses on its Apple Silicon Macs to translate apps compiled for 64-bit Intel processors to Apple's own processors. So Rosetta, like the Rosetta Stone, it translates the machine code language from it being looked at as an Intel-based run to a Silicon Mac-based run. And so it's another way of making sure that everything is working properly and making sure also that things will still load, because that's really important, right? Really important. So if you have, especially if you have all of these different programs coming at you, now programmers are going, well, we're writing things for Windows, we're writing things for Mac. Now we're rewriting stuff for like instruction level binary machine code ARM processors. Is there a translation matrix that Microsoft is producing that we only have to still program for just standard executables and stuff? Or are we doing something completely different, right? Because, well, who knows? These are completely different processors. But at the same time, they're saying that they're having some type of translation matrix, just like they'll have faster app emulation than Rosetta. So, it says the upcoming Surface Pro 10s and Surface Laptop 6s are going to have the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite processors instead of the Intel's Core Ultra chips. Also, the business-focused versions of the Surface Pro 10s and Surface Laptop 6 that ship with Intel Core Ultra processors. They already have those, but the ARM models will be marketed towards consumers instead. So they're going to keep the Intel stuff for business people and then do the ARM stuff for consumers. Probably because they don't know how it's going to work. And they're like, dude, if we enlist all these things for businesses and we kill a bunch of corporations, that would be bad. If we give one to Papa Joe over here and he gets pissed off, who cares? Papa Joe will just, complain to his nephew. His nephew will then take it to the computer shop. The computer shop will be like, dude, this is just Microsoft. And everyone will just yell at each other and Microsoft won't hear anything about it. And that's how it usually works, right? So it's weird. They're calling them next-gen AI Copilot BCs. Because Copilot is the AI version that Windows has right now. You might have seen that on the bottom right-hand corner of your Windows 11 machines. Copilot is their big thing that they're pushing with their AI stuff. I don't know. They're trying a whole bunch of new stuff. I mean, we're talking about AI stuff. We're talking about this new ARM processor. If you would have talked about this 2 years ago, we'd been like, what is the future doing? What about AI? What is this processor that's coming out? So, I don't know. It's going to be very, very weird. Let's see. Apps that checks recall when they were previously working on. So May 20th, here it is. That's what I was trying to look for the date. I thought I saw it. So Microsoft's big AI PC reveal will take place on May 20th, which by our calendar here looks like, let me go to the next month here. May 20th is, it's a Monday. Oh, that's weird. Usually that stuff comes out on Tuesday. Tuesday's a big tech day, which is why it's so cool to have this show on Tuesdays, because I find out a whole bunch of new stuff in the morning and I can actually bring it to you that night. But I've also had a week worth of stuff that I've been wanting to get to you. So, it's one of those things. Their idea for Copilot for every person meant to harken back to Microsoft's decades-old PC in every home vision for Windows. So they're going to be pushing AI, pushing AI, pushing AI. And all Windows devices will be running AI-capable chips by the end of 2026. So, but we're supposed to see this stuff in June, a month after they unveil their plans. So we're going to be seeing computers in June. I am very interested to see one of the first ones come across my bench, because a lot of times I find, I read about this stuff, I report it back to you, the things get released, and I don't see any of them. I don't see any of them for years, because either people didn't buy them or they're not having problems, which is interesting. But a lot of times I see a lot of machines without problems. I see a lot of machines that people, they get a new machine and they have their old machine. They don't know how to get their stuff out of the old machine to put the new machine. We do that all the time. So I end up seeing a lot of machines that don't necessarily need service, but they're in my hands and I get to use them for a minute and see how they work, which also is great, because then I get to report back to you and let you know how it works. So we'll see what Microsoft's doing. They are putting a lot of changes out there. And it's, but at the same time, they're saying no changes. It's the same as we've always done. Deal with it. So it looks like Windows 11's coming, and Windows 10's gonna be paid for. I'm gonna take my Windows 10 PC and not pay for it, and find out what happens. So tune in for a year and a half from now and see what happens with that. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about before we get to our halfway break here on the Computer Man Show, here on KSQD Santa Cruz, K-Squid 90.7 FM, 89.5 and 89.7 FM, and 90.7 FM, as well as KSQT in Prunedale, and always online at ksqd.org. Amazon. Okay, this is great. I was trying to think of like a fun way of really talking about this because it's just such a slap in the face. But we find that this happens a lot. And I read about this kind of stuff all the time. Not all the time, but quite often. Okay? What happens when you go into an Amazon store? How did the AI, before AI was AI, because these stores were open 3 years ago, or 4 years ago even. In fact, did they have a year? 5 years ago, over 5 years ago. 2018, right? Did we have AI in 2018? Not really. There was some ChatGPT stuff floating around, but there was no Amazon AI. How in the world did Amazon take a bunch of products that aren't designed for any type of super awesome new RFID walkout beep type stuff? How did Amazon get all these products into a store and make it so that when you walk in and walk out, that you pay for things? How'd they do that? We're going to find out after the break. So stick around here on the Computer Man, here on KSQD Santa Cruz, K-Squid 90.7 FM, and KSQD.org. We got a couple underwriters to go to, and then we'll find out the answer of that coming up back on the Computer Man Show when we come right back.
Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on KSQD 90.7 FM, you'll find me, Dr. Dawn Motika, ready to respond to your calls and emails on health and medical science topics and issues. We cover medical breakthroughs and medical breakdowns. As an expert in alternative and complementary medicine as well, I bring a lifetime of experience and compassion to our mutual dialogue. Please join the discussion Wednesday night at 6 p.m. on KSQD. Don't Google your symptoms. Ask Dr. Dawn.
My name is Luigi Obido, owner-operator of Pleasure Point Computers and the host of the Computer Man Show, a 1-hour call-in show Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Viruses, slowdowns, scams, and updates. Computers can be a pain, and I'll help you through it.
Send me an email with your request. If it's hardware you want, baby, I'm the best. I'm the computer.
If it has an on switch, we'll probably talk about it on the Computer Man Show Tuesdays at 6 p.m. only on KSQD 90.7 FM Santa Cruz.
Get into a computer.
KSQD thanks Maca.us.com for underwriting this program. Ever wonder what happens to a MAGA hat if you remove the tail of the G? It becomes a Maca hat. Make America conscious already. Make American courts accountable. Make autos combust alcohol. Make America care, amigo. More information at maca.us.com. Remember, your vote counts. Thank you, Maca.us.com, for supporting Community Radio K-Squid.
Support for KSQD comes from the Monterey Bay Air Resources District. The Wood Stove Changeout Program now offers higher incentives for Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Benito County residents to switch to cleaner home heating alternatives. Details at MontereyBayCleanAir.org. That's MontereyBayCleanAir.org. Thank you, MBARD, for supporting Community Radio K-Squid.
Hi, I'm Bobby Bishop, host of Be in the Night, bringing you the best I can with jazz, love songs, and soul. Join me on Tuesday evenings from 7 to 10 p.m., playing the classics straight ahead and introducing you to the latest artists and composers. That's Tuesday nights from 7 to 10 p.m. right here on listener-supported KSQD 90.7 FM, Santa Cruz.
Oh, jazz music is so amazing, and you can listen to it here at 7 o'clock with Bobby B with Be in the Night coming up at 7, and then also on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 7 to 10, we have amazing jazz shows starting here tonight at 7 o'clock with Bobby B with Be in the Night. Stick around, let it happen. It's going to be great. Great show. Bobby's putting it together, as he always is, and curating it and making it just right for you. So coming up, Be in the Night, 7 o'clock, just let it happen. All you have to do is stick around and check it out. All right, welcome back to the Computer Man Show here on KSQD Santa Cruz, K-Squid 90.7 FM, and KSQD.org. We were talking about Amazon and their crazy store where you'd walk in and walk out, right? And I would always, these type of new technologies, you're like, that is amazing. How because I'm a programmer, I do this type of stuff. I've worked in RFID, which is the radio frequency identification, where you can, it's all the prox reader stuff. We've all dealt with it at some point now, where you have a little card, you don't swipe the card, you put the card next to the reader and it beeps, right? Where those two coils get together and they energize each other, which then passes the information back and forth, checks with the database, make sure your number's in the database. If it does, it opens the door, right? Pretty simple, straightforward stuff. I mean, simple as that kind of stuff gets. So how did Amazon do this? None of these products, you didn't grab a product and had a special sticker on it or something every time. These were just products you would get at Safeway or whatever, just standard products in a store designed like a Safeway or whatever with no cashier. So how did this work? And why did Amazon abandon them? So it was, they always touted, it was AI powered. It's, all this stuff. Yeah. So turns out those stores were powered, I'm putting air quotes out there, powered by AI, and AI stands for 1,000 human contractors. So what does that mean? Well, it's basically this just walk out technology that they had, which allowed customers to simply put their shopping into the bags and leave the store without having to get in line. The tech, which was only available at half of the e-commerce giants Amazon Fresh stores, used a host of cameras and sensors to track what shoppers left the store with. But it wasn't sensors. Instead of closing that loop with technology and AI and all that kind of stuff, the company had an army of 1,000 workers in India who were watching what you went as you walk through the store. They basically get assigned to you, and they'd watch you, and then you'd pick up something, and they go, okay, you have that, and they'd write it down, or they'd put it on the list, and then they'd watch, and they'd watch the second thing that you picked up and put in your bag, and they'd write that down, and then when you walked out the door, they would then calculate it and put it onto your Amazon cart. There was no AI at all. It was purely humans watching other humans do things and then putting in the input for themselves, and Amazon touted it as AI. There's another company that does there's a little tiny robots. I think they were in San Francisco or in Austin or something, and it was like a delivery bot. And the little delivery bot would drive around downtown or wherever you drive into a place, it'd pick up food or whatever, and they would leave that place and then drive to the person who ordered it, and it would pick it up. And that also was driven by AI, it said. And that also turned out to be a team of like 1,000 people in India driving the cars. Like literally driving remote control cars, just like, drones or something. And that's what they were doing over the cellular signal. That's what this was. This amazing technology. Nope. People in a box watching. And like a lot of times it comes down to that. So now it's, so Amazon is now betting on scanners and screens embedded in the shopping cart called dash carts. That's the tech that's theoretically is in these carts now. But when they did this 2018 thing, it was purely just starting with the cashierless stores. It was purely just human driven and just watching and making sure that enough cameras were on the people. But they said that now, 5 years later, the system has become a burden. It was too slow, too expensive to implement. Outsourced cashiers reportedly taking hours to send data back so customers could get their receipts, stuff like that. So, but just, and then it also, Amazon relied on cheap outsourced labor instead of paying fair wages locally. It's just Amazon being just shady, greasy, slimy stuff, right? I guess the advocacy group Surveillance Technology Oversight Project filed a class action lawsuit against Amazon, accusing the company of failing to inform customers that it was secretly selling data to Starbucks for profit. There we go. There's another one. That's just thrown in the very bottom there. Yeah. So it's ridiculous. So so they were doing that, and then they were selling their money. Anyway. Everyone's selling your data. It's the most expensive commodity on the planet right now. Your data, which also brought me to another article. I think I forgot, which I did, but it was so heavy that I remembered it, that it's like Google has to give back or has to delete $5 billion with a B, with a B, $5 billion worth of your data that they took while you were in incognito mode. How about that? So you jump on to Google Chrome. Let me just go over it real quick for people who don't use Google Chrome, because there's one of these on every single browser. You go into private mode on Safari. You go into incognito mode on Google Chrome. On Firefox, I believe it's also just a new private window. And theoretically, the idea is that it doesn't save cookies on your computer. You can log into services. I use it all the time with customers. If you imagine somebody comes into my shop and they say, I can't get into my iCloud account. Well, I have an iCloud account. If I sign into their iCloud account on my computer, it would then sign me out of mine. It would do some extra things. Maybe I'd put their information into my computer and save it. I don't want to do that, right? Obviously, because it's their stuff, it's their information, it's your information, it's yours. It's not mine. So how do I do that? Well, I open an incognito window, which is a private browsing window, and doesn't save any cookies, doesn't save any login stuff, doesn't autofill, doesn't do any of the things that normal browsers do. Lets me go on, do my thing, sign on with your account, see if we can get in, do our stuff, sign out, close the window, nothing is saved on my computer. Same way we go to a library. You want to sit down at a browser. Theoretically, a lot of those, the machines have, what was it called? Like deep freeze, I think is the name of the program that we used up in school when I ran the Student Computing Center. Where you basically lock the computer in the morning and it's there. No matter what is installed on it throughout the day, no matter what is run on the end of the day, as soon as you turn the computer off, it goes back to where it was in the morning. And so none of the software, none of the downloads, none of the malicious stuff, no extensions, any of the browsers, any of the things that people sign into to do whatever they're doing with school or whatever they're doing, all gets removed at the end of the day based on the software that's installed. So what is Google doing with their $5 billion worth of incognito data that's yours that they said they never collected? Yeah, look into that. That's creepy. All right, let's get back in. We kind of burned through it. We had a lot of things to talk about. I want to talk about so many things. Microsoft is very important, all those things, because we're going to be talking about it pretty soon. So, but let's get into some email questions and see where we're going. Okay, this one I actually want to talk about I have on this Saturday, I'm going to be going to the shop and helping out a father-son team who they bought a whole bunch of computer parts and they want to build this computer and make it awesome and everything, but they don't know what they're doing. And so I'm going to open up the shop to them, and we're going, of course we do a little fee type thing, but they're going to come in and basically build the computer in front of me, and I'm going to give them tips and tricks and things like that on how to do that. Because building a computer is super fun. It's really enriching. It gives you this I built this thing and now I'm using it. It's really cool, good feeling. But at the same time, you're like, do I keep pushing? This thing's not snapping in. It's not fitting. Why does this not fit? Why does this plug doesn't go here? It looks like the pins are right. Is that right? What's not working? Why isn't this fit? Why isn't it turn on? What happened to my shorting? What happened to my grounding? Why did it turn on over here but not turn on over here? Why am I not getting video out? Why do the lights come on and nothing works? A lot of questions. So this person said, we killed our computer. My brother and I were trying to install 32 gigs of RAM into our Lenovo ThinkCentre as an upgrade from 16. We did we did that, and the computer started beeping. 3 short, 3 long. Beeps. So beep codes coming out of BIOS will be long or short versions, and then from that, then you can actually usually look at the code and see what the code looks like based on your BIOS model, and you can tell if there's a short, or you can tell that the processor's not plugged in or something, or it's not receiving the correct amount of power, or the RAM isn't correct, or something like that. It'll give you beeps and tell you an error code, right? So they took the 32 gigs of RAM out, put the old RAM back in, and still get the 3 short, 3 long beeps. Okay, so immediately when I saw this, when you pulled the RAM out and got the beeps, you tried to put the new RAM in, got the beeps. You then tried to put the old RAM in, got the same beeps. The RAM isn't seated. So RAM is one of the scariest things if you're building a computer for the first time, one of the scariest things to install, because those things have 128, 256 pins, sometimes more, and all those little pinchy guys are pinching each one of those pins, on one on each side. So if you have to make that connection in one snap. And so with RAM, there's a lot of pressure involved, and it's probably more than you think to seat the RAM correctly. When I put a computer together, one of the first things I do, I don't put it in the case. I don't do anything. I take the motherboard out. I put it on the static bag on the box. I then install the processor right there. So I'm not inside the computer. I can just install the processor right there, nice and easy. Depending on my heatsink, depending on what I'm using for cooling, a lot of times, because I do this for a living, I will have a separate heatsink that I just put on the processor right there on my bench, so I don't have to get all the water cooling stuff and everything out. But by doing that, I put the processor, I put the RAM in, I plug in my power, and I make sure I have my 4 connections. I have my video, I have my power, I have a mouse, and I have a keyboard. And then with it sitting on the bench, just like that, of course, I have power going into for the power supply going in and the ATX connector. But when I have all that sitting there, like a big hodgepodge of wires, looks really cool and really technical or whatever, sitting on the bench, then I short the pins on the power on, and I see if I get video out. And that's with it sitting. There's no hard drive plugged in. There's no anything. It's just RAM, CPU. I've got the motherboard. I've got a heatsink on it, and I've got power coming into it and video going out. and of course, then the mouse and the keyboard if I need to get into BIOS or something. But usually, just on the first burn, I just turn it on and make sure I get video out. If I get video out, I'm good. Then I can start my build. Because then I'll take it all out. I take the heatsink off. The RAM is already installed. The processor is already installed. I'll then slide the motherboard into the case, put the new heatsink on it, and without anything else, plug in the power supply connections and turn it on inside the case with nothing installed. And half the time, I'll do that and it won't turn on. Why? Grounding. There's some grounding peg that I miss. It's not seated against the case correctly. Maybe I didn't hit the, there's a little plate that goes in that hides. Actually, they don't really do that anymore with the plates. Everything's kind of built in together. But sometimes it's a ground. Sometimes it's not grounding on the case properly. And the case is a main grounding point. So it takes more pressure than you think to seat RAM. It's just one of those things. You got to push it a little bit harder and click in. It may feel like it's pushing too hard, but if you've got the pins lined up and it's starting to fold down, you'll hear it snap. And as soon as you hear it click and snap, it's going to be a really good feeling. You'll feel it. But also what I do is I don't plug in all those gigs of RAM. They're plugging in 32 gigs, so it sounds like they're doing 4 gigs of 8. I do not do all 4 gigs at once. I will plug in one stick to make sure I just have some RAM to make sure everything's functional. And as soon as I do the one stick okay, then if I get ambitious, I'll add all 4. And then if it doesn't work, then I take it back and go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. But usually I'll start with one stick just to make sure my hardware is good, just to make sure I have everything out of the box, it's functional. Because you never know. I mean, back in the day when I was building Pentium 2 computers, in like 1996 or 5 or whatever that was, I go to Fry's, I buy the motherboard, I buy the CPU, I buy the RAM, I bring it home, I'd plug it all in and nothing would work. I get back, I'd take the motherboard back and I had a bad motherboard, so give me another motherboard. I go home, I plug that in, it didn't work. I take it back again, I get a third motherboard, take that home and it works. And or Fry's also had their burn-in policy there where you would go to the table and they would actually put the CPU, put the RAM, put everything in together and they turn it on for you and go, hey look, it's posting. You go, okay, post, power on, self-test. And if it's posting, that means you got that beep at the beginning of BIOS and you're good. So this I would bet my dollar that the RAM is not seated properly, especially since they went back to the other one and it didn't work then either. So try that. Press harder, but make sure everything's lined up. Okay. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, I'm getting ping spikes on my desktop PC only and not other devices. I use a wireless Wi-Fi network in my home, which I have several devices already connected to. The issue is that only one of the devices has a high ping problem, which is my custom PC. Ran some ping tests via the command prompt, which is great. That's just, ping, and you can ping the router like 127.0.0.1 or 192.168.0.1. And then that will send a packet out to the router and back and then time it like a little stopwatch and say, okay, you should be getting less than 1 millisecond if anything's close, right? So this person pinged the router, less than 1 millisecond. Pinged the loopback interface to the 127.0.0.1, less than 1 millisecond. Pinged 8.8.8.8, which is Google's DNS, which should be also very quick. It's then averaging around 500 milliseconds and as high as 2,000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds. They say I've conducted the same test on all my PCs, all my devices, confirmed that they all have the stable pings except for my PC. Weird thing is, nothing was changed when this first happened. When this first happened, I've been using the PC, same Wi-Fi router for 3 years. Suddenly, I'm getting hit with these crazy ping spikes on the device I use the most. For troubleshooting, I tried to update the network device drivers. They were already up to date. Too many devices connected to the network, disconnected everything, and just the PC. The issue's still there. Firewall. Turned off my firewall for the network entirely just to see also the issue still persisted. Or too many background apps. I terminated all the background apps and still have them going on. Okay. So I think at this point, it's most likely your network adapter. I'd be really interested for you to get one of those USB Wi-Fi adapters, plug that in, turn off the one you're using, try it on the other one, and see if your ping changes. If it doesn't, it'd be interesting to boot into safe mode with networking, and then go safe mode with networking, go to the same ping, and see if you get a faster ping. I'd also be really curious if you can run a long cable to your modem, or bring your computer into the same room as the modem is, hook it all up, turn it all on, and run a cable test and see how that works. I think it's your network card. I don't think it's any other thing on the machine, but it could be a driver, but you said you updated them. I don't know how you updated them. I don't know what version you updated to, but also you could also look through your Windows updates and see if anything came through recently or something got updated without you knowing. That could be as well. Okay, let's kind of firing through these a little quick. That's okay. Let's get through it. How much stuff can a laptop power? Actually, before we do that, if you have a question, you can always email me, Luigi, Luigi, at ksqd.org, or you can shoot me over an email at luigi@pleasurepointcomputers.com as well. But either way, at the radio station here, I'm happy to answer any questions you've got. You can always give me a call at the shop, too, at 831-464-2220. Always happy to help out, and we're there Monday through Friday. So how much stuff can a laptop power? I have a mouse, keyboard, and an external monitor plugged into it, and I'm charging a smartphone. At what point does it throttle what it can power? Would it be a better idea to use a keyboard that came with it rather than plug in an extra to itself? The monitor has no power plug, it's Type-C. Wow, okay, so you have a USB-C monitor, and you're charging your phone, and you're using a keyboard and a mouse. Okay, so mice and keyboards, that's the minimum. Those are very small, minimal power, less than 100 milliamps. Totally unlikely to significantly change any type of charging or tax your charging system at all. No big deal. Charging a smartphone can draw from 5 watts to 18 watts, which is usually within the capability of a lot of USB-C devices. Now, USB-C is usually a higher voltage, higher wattage device. Not higher voltage, it's usually 12 volts, 5 volts. But it can handle more push, which can then get more charging into your device, causing it to charge faster, which is nice. But then you're saying that also you run a screen off of that as well. So first of all, I want to make sure that the port you're plugging your phone into has a little lightning bolt next to it or has some type of certified for charging port on it. And that means that that port will be able to handle the higher amperage that your phone might take or something like a monitor. But if you're powering a monitor off of your USB-C, that means that bus is already is enough to supply power to the unit as well as the data stream as well. But I would think for multiple devices, I can't believe that everything's running the way that it is, to be honest. You're probably at the maximum right now. I would say even with the smartphone plugged in, that would normally be a maximum. But then also to power a monitor off a USB-C, that's really asking a lot of the system. At this point, most likely, unless you're doing this on the go or something, I would be adamant about you getting a powered USB hub and just taking the load off your laptop a little bit. You're pushing a lot of power through your ports, and they're designed for that, but that's a lot, and sometimes down the road, you might see that actually catch up with you and maybe burn out some components. Every once in a while we see that happen. Well, I mean, actually we see it happen quite often, but it's mostly on older stuff that's not really designed for heavy smartphone charging, that kind of stuff. When USB came out, it wasn't used very much for charging. We ran some external drives and things like that on it, but for the most part, it wasn't used for these heavy loads, especially like powering monitors and stuff. And now they're being designed a little bit better with USB-C, but still, you want to keep in mind and just keep your head with that because that can get kind of messy as well as also taxing your system. You want your laptop to last as long as possible. So if you're pulling heavy amounts of power through it, it's not necessarily bad for it, but you're using the system. You're hitting those tires pretty hard. You're taking corners really, really, really hard, and you're going to the tire shop going, "Hey, why is all my tread gone?" And you're like, "Well, you've been driving a little hard. Rather than if you took it a little bit easier, you'd have to go to the tire shop maybe a month or two later, right?" So, something like that. Always a car analogy. But with that, we've reached the end of another Computer Man show. It goes by so quick. If I missed your call tonight, you can always reach me by email, Luigi, Luigi, @ksqd.org. Remember to tune into the Computer Man show Tuesday nights from 6 to 7 p.m. here on 90.7 FM, K-Squid, KSQD. I'd like to thank all my listeners and my callers. Thank you, KSQD, Sandy Stone, Harold Feldstein, Richard Kibbe, David Kibbich, John Tandage, all of Santa Cruz, Nicola Tesla, the Wasp, Mr. Gaston, Torvalds, and of course, the humble Electron. Thank you again, Santa Cruz. I'm your Computer Man here on KSQD Santa Cruz, K-Squid, 90.7 FM, and KSQD.org. Stay tuned right here for Be in the Night. I hope you all have a positively charged evening. Until next time.